Returning home, I found the lunch you prepared today to be just as delicious as always. Thank you, my husband. Placing the lunchbox inside a tote bag on the kitchen counter, I followed our usual routine. Welcome back. Dinner will be ready soon, so go take a shower first, okay? It was a typical scene in our household. From the tote bag on the counter, I retrieved a plastic square lunchbox. It was empty, indicating that my early morning efforts to make lunch were appreciated. I smiled broadly, absent-mindedly washed the lunchbox, and then resumed preparing dinner. In that moment, however, I completely forgot that the lunch I had packed for my husband that day was supposed to be a burger. Wait, wasn't it a burger yesterday? The next day, while enjoying a burger made by my mother for lunch, the realization hit me there were two lunch boxes for my husband, a square one and a round one. I had used the round one, but the one returned was the square. I hadn't put the washed lunchbox back in the cupboard the previous night, and this morning I filled it with a sandwich before handing it over. A bad feeling crept over me. I decided to investigate and contacted someone to look into my husband's actions. The results revealed actions far beyond what I had imagined, leaving me speechless. My name is Iris Johnson, 30 years old. I used to work at a bank, but now serve as an office clerk at my father's company. 3 years ago, I married my husband, Chris, introduced by a couple of friends. Chris was invited to a drinking party with our close friends at the time, and my first impression of him was that of a tall, slender, and handsome man who looked great in a suit. As an office clerk at my father's company, is store, a wholesale food and liquor business near the station. I shared with my husband that it was a family-run business presenting its own set of challenges. Chris worked at a different company, and during a conversation with our friends, the topic of our jobs came up. Chris inquired about my work at the bank, wondering if we had crossed paths, but unfortunately, the locations were quite distant. Our relationship blossomed as Chris, being in sales, was always considerate and charming. He took me to nice restaurants and gave thoughtful gifts on anniversaries. My friends were envious, and upon marrying, I left my bank job to assist my father's struggling company due to my mother's health issues. Iris, I'm sorry you had to quit your bank job because of Mom, Chris expressed concern. Don't worry about it. The salary is almost the same, I reassured him. And I can leave at regular hours. Plus, I get delicious lunches, so it's all good. Indeed, working at my father's company had only advantages. The flexible hours make managing household tasks easier. I'm focused on saving as much as possible now, not wanting to waste money because our family is facing a certain problem. We began our married life in an old 2-story apartment, not wanting to spend much on a home we'd only be in during the evenings due to our work commitments. The plan was to save as much as possible before having kids. One of our problems was that my in-laws didn't think too highly of me. My parents, being country folks, are jealous, thinking your family is wealthy. They misunderstood that not having a wedding ceremony was us looking down on them. Wasn't it Chris who didn't explain it properly? If he had explained, maybe this wouldn't have happened, I thought. We didn't have a wedding party because we wanted to spend our life after marriage, not at a party, which we explained to my in-laws. They opposed it, believing in spending on celebrations. Instead, we had dinner with both families. I thought my in-laws were satisfied with that, but they must think we don't want to be tied to their family. It seems they've made up their mind about that. But I'm sure things will change once we have kids. Yeah, that's all we can hope for. Even when we greeted them at their house or met both families together, they never said anything unpleasant directly. They did seem disappointed when we said we weren't having a party. The words of my in-laws, as told by my husband, seemed more genuine since I'm not there. They say things like, "Such a stinky family for not spending on celebrations," or, "They're snobbish and unpleasant until they have kids. You don't need to interact with my family. They don't want to meet you anyway." Chris always said he'd handle it, keeping me from contacting or visiting his family. Hey, how about we visit them together this Christmas? I really want to clear up this misunderstanding and get along. We can wait until we have kids. They said they don't want us to come. Plus, I don't want you to start the new year feeling bad. Since my husband's family lives in the next town, the dilemma lingers. We never ran into them accidentally after marriage. My friend said, "That's convenient, isn't it?" But I still felt disappointed that I couldn't get along with my husband's parents. And then there was another problem troubling me. Iris, I have a little favor to ask. My husband emerged from the bath hesitantly and started to speak. Oh no, again. What is it? You haven't already run out of your allowance, have you? Did you spend all $600 in the middle of the month? Despite being a handsome husband that everyone envied, he had a significant flaw. Oh yeah, sorry. I'm going out for drinks with the guys from the sales department tomorrow, but I'm a bit short. Can you spare $200? Chris just couldn't manage money. He always prioritized the spur of the moment. I found some cool clothes last week and couldn't resist buying them, and then I ended up covering the tab for my colleague. What? You bought clothes and treated? Sorry, I just couldn't help myself, and the clothes are stylish. About the tab, I had to, you know. I'm a senior. It would look bad if I didn't. That's what people do when they can afford it. If I keep dishing out money for Chris' pride, we'll never pay off our debts. My husband loves fashion, can't resist buying things he wants, and is a show-off who uses spending money as a way to relieve stress. So I end up giving him additional allowance each month. When we got married, Chris had a revolving credit loan and a new car loan, which amounted to more than $2,000 in monthly repayments. He also likes drinking and spends half the week out, burning through his entire salary. Naturally, he had no savings. This came to light when we were engaged in discussing our future life. It'll be fine. Things have worked out so far, and they'll work out in the future too. His optimistic words made me lean more towards paying off debts than having a wedding. Chris wanted a wedding, but I could easily imagine him showing off unnecessarily and wasting money. After my persuasion, Chris agreed. All right, I'll give up on the party, but please keep my debt a secret from my parents. That settled the matter. Looking back, maybe I should have reconsidered the marriage then. But at that time, I thought I needed to take care of him, and I was in love with him. Love is blind, as they say. 2 years have passed since then. Driven by a sense of duty to repay debts, I've been living frugally. I only buy inexpensive clothes and personal items. I've cut down on eating out, and I try to make our home-cooked meals as delicious as possible. I also prepare lunch boxes, so I wake up at 5 o'clock a.m. every morning to manage the household. Hey, about the allowance, since you always overspend, why not just make it $1,000 from the start? His attitude, only thinking of the present, still annoys me sometimes. All right, when you can manage your $600 allowance properly, we'll think about it. I can't let my guard down now. After 2 years of marriage, we've halved our debt, and we've even started to save a little for a new family member. I live off my salary, and all of Chris's salary, except for his allowance and savings, goes to paying off debts. Except for the car loan, we should be able to pay everything off in another year. With a child, our family's problems will be solved. I believe that without a doubt. But I had no idea of the betrayal that awaited us in this life of frugality. There was one thing I insisted on buying. It was my husband's lunchbox. A nice-looking square box and a round box. I chose the lunchbox based on the menu. Today's lunch is your favorite? A burger, Chris. Awesome, Iris. Your burger is so delicious. Some dishes are easier to pack in the square lunchbox, like sandwiches. Since I'm making him cut back on eating out, I wanted to make his favorite dishes for lunch. Lately, we've been talking a lot about having kids, and I felt like we were living a modest but happy life. That is until that day Chris brought home something else. I'm home. Lunch was great today, thanks. Returning home, he placed his lunchbox inside a tote bag on the kitchen counter, as usual. Welcome back. Dinner will be ready soon, so go take a shower first, okay? It was a typical scene. From the tote bag on the counter, a plastic square lunchbox was taken out. It was completely empty. Waking up at 5 o'clock a.m. to make lunch, I was really happy to see the lunchbox empty. I smiled. washed the lunchbox without a second thought, and went back to finishing dinner. At that time, I completely forgot the lunch I had packed for Chris that day was a burger. Wait, wasn't it a burger yesterday? The next day, while eating a burger made by my mom, I suddenly remembered I had used the round lunchbox, but the one that came back was square. I didn't put the washed lunchbox back in the cupboard last night, and in the morning, I filled it with a sandwich before handing it over. I had a bad feeling. When I checked the cupboard where the lunchboxes were stored at home, it was empty. What could this mean? As I pondered this while preparing dinner, Chris came home. I'm home. Thanks for lunch again. Is the bathroom ready? Sorry, I spaced out and forgot to clean it. Just a minute. I was so lost in thought about the lunchbox that I completely forgot about the bathroom. When I hurriedly finished cleaning and came back, Chris was drinking coffee while watching TV. Inside the tote bag he left on the counter was the stainless steel lunchbox. I had a nagging feeling and quietly opened the cupboard, trying not to let Chris notice. There, the round lunchbox was back. Suspicious. There's definitely something going on. While Chris was in the bath, I decided to call someone for help and do some investigating on my own too. That night, I waited until Chris was asleep to check his phone. He kept a notebook with his passwords and IDs in his desk drawer. If he hadn't changed his hiding spot, maybe he didn't have anything to hide. I hope so. Otherwise, he was seriously underestimating me. Upon opening his phone and checking his social media, I saw frequent messages with someone named Louise. Reading the contents, I felt a surge of anger. Thanks for the lunch again today. Your lunches are so cute and delicious. It feels like we're newlyweds. I'm so happy. I can't wait to become Chris' real wife when we're married. I won't cut your allowance just for making lunch, you know. You're so cute. The ring I gave you the other day suits you well. Honestly, I wish I had met you before her. Just looking at those heartfelt messages made me feel full. I was surprised that there was a woman making lunch for a married man, knowing he was married. Looking back a little, I found the exchange from that day. Chris, I'm so sorry I couldn't collect the lunchbox today. Was everything okay? It's fine. I have you. Using the same lunchbox for such situations. It was supposed to be the square one, but she didn't notice and just washed it. So that's why I was slow to notice the lunchbox. Having the same lunchbox ready was quite a thorough plan. But then, reading Louise's response, I felt like my heart stopped. Your wife is really clueless, isn't she? Thanks to that, I can stay over, and she won't notice. Love me lots more? Okay, staying over. The fact that my husband was cheating became undeniable, and my hands started to shake. There were photos of them half naked on a trip, smiling together. Curious, I looked back at their exchanges and saw that Louise had been making lunch for about half a year. Come to think of it, month after the divorce, I started staying overnight at his parents' house occasionally last year. Was it because of this? Initially, I was so angry I thought my head would explode. But as I took screenshots and read on, I felt more and more hollow. Thinking about how all my efforts these past 2 years had been in vain, what was the point of my last 2 years? Tears were overflowing. Before I knew it, I loved you, that's why I believed in you, slipped out. Trying not to wake Chris, I sobbed quietly. I felt cold, yet there was a boiling rage deep inside. I couldn't forgive his betrayal. While sending the screenshots to my phone, I thought about how I would make him pay. For the next week, I acted like nothing was wrong. I never thought smiling at my husband would feel so painful. I wondered where he got the money for the trip and the ring. I managed all his bank accounts and cards. How did he do it? A week later, I received evidence from the person I'd asked for help, reigniting my anger. I took the evidence and visited my in-laws for the first time in 2 years. I spilled all of Chris's secrets and expressed my intention to divorce. There was no turning back. I went to S stores the next day at lunchtime to confront my husband and his mistress. His office had a warehouse next door, and I boldly entered through the front door with a reception area. From the reception counter, you could see the entire office. Everyone else seemed to be out for lunch, leaving just the two of them. Chris was chatting with a woman at the opposite desk, eating lunch. "Hello, how are you?" The moment Chris saw me at the reception, his face froze. I walked straight up to him and looked at the lunch on his desk. "What are you doing here? Strange, isn't it? I packed your favorite salad today, but even though the lunchbox is the same, the contents are different. What's going on?" Chris hastily covered his lunchbox. "Who are you? Please leave. You can't just walk in here like that." The woman at the opposite desk stood up, her face contorted, and yelled. I peered into her lunchbox. It was the same as my husband's. "So, you're Louise. Louise Smith, right? Thanks for always making lunch for my husband." "What? How do you know her name?" "I know everything about your affair with her, about you throwing away the lunches I made." Chris' eyes widened, and he started sweating, even though it wasn't hot. Louise, realizing I knew about the affair, started screaming. "Chris says your lunch is so bad he can't eat it. So I've been making them instead. And you cut his allowance so he can't eat out. Isn't that just pitiful? Well, at my place, he always says it's delicious and eats everything up. I've been waking up early to make lunch so he can spend his whole allowance on fun stuff. I was doing something pitiful, huh? No lies. I know you grew up a rich girl. You're bad at housework. Your cooking is awful. And you reduce Chris' allowance for your own use, right? Chris is the pitiful one here, so please divorce him quickly." Today was the first time I met Louise, and it was a bit unexpected. I thought she would be much younger. Louise seemed about my age. "Oh, right. You wanted to be a bride soon, huh? Are you in a hurry to get married? But if you marry this guy, you'll be in debt hell, can't have kids, and his parents will mysteriously hate you." "Debt? Hey, get out of here. You're causing trouble at the company. Let's talk at home, okay?" Chris, sweating profusely, desperately pushed me out. Then, a middle-aged woman peeked out from a seat partitioned off by a cubicle. "It's fine. Take your time. It's lunch break. Iris is like a daughter to me. If necessary, I'll testify about the two of them at the company." "Daughter? What do you mean? I didn't know they knew each other." The person I had contacted was Marcia, the wife of the president of my husband's company. She's an old friend of my mother's from her student days and used to visit our house often when I was little. I kind of forgot to tell Chris about her as she used to listen to my complaints about the company. Marcia had been investigating the fate of the lunches I made for Chris and their behavior at the company. "You were throwing my lunches in the break room trash can every day. I got videos of it and showed them to your parents." "What parents?" "Yeah, I went to your parents' house yesterday. I revealed all your secrets. They were surprised, but apparently you made me out to be the bad guy and got money from them. No wonder you didn't want me near your house yesterday." When I went to Chris' parents' house to talk about his debts and affair, I heard shocking things. They believed I, being a rich girl, despised their poor family and didn't want to associate with them. Moreover, they thought I was infertile and that the treatment costs were making our life difficult, so they were giving Chris $600 a month. Sometimes he even begged for more. "Right. So you had nearly $2,000 a month for allowance. You even stored your new clothes at your parents' house. Well, that's Louise. This is who he really is. Still want to marry him? I'm divorcing him, but if you want him, I'll get wrap him for you." "Oh no, I don't want him." "What? Why not?" "Wait, divorce. Let's talk at home. It was just a fling. I'll be good from now on, sorry. I apologize." Chris, pale-faced, grabbed my shoulders and begged, his head almost touching mine. It hurt. It was annoying, and it made me furious. I yelled, shaking off his hands, "Shut up. Just divorce me and pay the alimony. Live with your debts alone, please. I can't live without Iris. Let's have a child right away. I swear I won't spend money anymore. I'll be a great dad." I was just amazed he brought up having kids in this situation. Did he think saying that would make me forgive him? "I don't want a child with you. Live alone." "Oh, and don't think you can rely on your parents anymore. Your dad was really angry. He said he wants all the money he gave you back." "No, that can't be. I don't want a divorce. Please forgive me, Iris, please." Chris collapsed on the floor, crying pathetically. Chris, this is what they call spilled water. Can't be gathered up, too bad. Marcia smiled slightly as our eyes met. I suppressed a laugh, nodded slightly, and left the company. After that, the divorce with Chris went smoothly. With his parents' help, I returned the debt-ridden accounts and cards and took all the money we had saved as shared property. I'm truly sorry. If I hadn't believed everything he said and talked to you properly, things might have been different. No, I should have reached out to you sooner myself. Not being able to build a relationship with my in-laws was my only regret. My father-in-law paid the alimony in full and said he'd also claim what he had given Chris. Reflecting on spoiling Chris, his parents wouldn't let him live at home, and now he's in a cheap wooden apartment. He has to deal with his debts and living expenses, which he never had to before. At the company, he was moved to shipping because they couldn't have a debt-ridden man involved in an office affair in sales. Marcia told me he's being yelled at daily for unfamiliar warehouse work. Even with a reduced salary, it's still not too bad, so he can't quit for the sake of his debt. Now, the once handsome man has become a scruffy old guy. I wonder how much allowance he has now. Luis, feeling uncomfortable after Marcia found out, resigned the next day and never returned. Luis sent a letter of apology through Mara. The letter said, "Now that I know Chris's true nature, I'm moving because I'm scared he'll cling to me after the divorce. Definitely. I've returned to my parents' house, saving money with the frugality skills I learned." Chris begged to get back together several times, but I completely ignored him. Marcia's warning seems to be the most effective since he can't quit his job. With the alimony from the two, I'm planning a spa tour with Marcia and my mother soon. My life is just beginning. I plan to live